Does your morning coffee spike your blood pressure? For millions, the day begins with a ritual. The comforting aroma of coffee filling the kitchen, the gentle clinking of the mug, the first sip of warm, invigorating brew. Coffee, often seen as the elixir of productivity and focus, holds a prominent place in our daily routines. Yet, beneath this comforting familiarity lies a question that often stirs debate. How does this beloved beverage impact our health, particularly our blood pressure? Blood pressure, the force exerted by blood against our artery walls, is a crucial indicator of cardiovascular health. This essay delves into the fascinating world of coffee and its impact on blood pressure, separating fact from fiction and providing a balanced perspective on this often debated topic. Caffeine, the star player in our coffee narrative, is a naturally occurring stimulant found in various plants, including coffee beans, tea leaves, and cacao pods. Upon consumption, caffeine is rapidly absorbed into the bloodstream, making its way to the brain and other parts of the body. Caffeine acts on the central nervous system, blocking the action of adenosine, a neurotransmitter known for its calming and sleep-promoting effects. By inhibiting adenosine, caffeine effectively lifts the brakes on our brain, leading to increased alertness, focus, and even a temporary boost in mood. This stimulating effect is often why many of us reach for that cup of coffee to kickstart our day. Caffeine's influence extends beyond the brain, causing a cascade of physiological responses throughout the body. Understanding these intricate mechanisms is key to unraveling the complex relationship between coffee and our cardiovascular system. As caffeine courses through the bloodstream, it sets off a chain reaction, triggering the release of various hormones. Adrenaline, the fight-or-flight hormone, surges, preparing the body for action. This surge can lead to a temporary increase in heart rate and blood pressure, a physiological response designed to provide energy and focus in the face of a perceived challenge. Simultaneously, caffeine stimulates the release of cortisol, often referred to as the stress hormone. While moderate cortisol levels are essential for normal bodily functions, prolonged elevation, potentially influenced by chronic caffeine consumption, can have implications for blood pressure regulation and overall health. The initial surge of adrenaline and cortisol contributes to the perceived alertness and energy boost many experience after consuming coffee. Understanding the potential long-term implications of these hormonal fluctuations is crucial for making informed decisions about our caffeine intake. The impact of caffeine on blood pressure isn't solely driven by hormones. Caffeine also exerts a direct effect on blood vessels, the intricate network responsible for transporting blood throughout the body. Caffeine can cause a temporary constriction of blood vessels, narrowing the pathways through which blood flows. This constriction, particularly noticeable in the peripheral blood vessels, can lead to a transient increase in blood pressure. However, caffeine also stimulates the production of nitric oxide, a molecule that promotes blood vessel dilation, widening the pathways for blood flow. This dilation, particularly evident in the blood vessels supplying vital organs like the brain and heart, can counteract the constricting effects of caffeine, potentially leading to a decrease in blood pressure. The effects of caffeine on blood pressure are not uniform across all individuals. Factors such as genetics, overall health, and caffeine tolerance play a significant role in shaping our physiological responses. For habitual coffee drinkers, the body often develops a tolerance to caffeine's effects. This tolerance develops as the body becomes accustomed to the regular presence of caffeine, adapting its physiological responses accordingly. As a result, regular coffee drinkers may experience less of a blood pressure spike compared to those who consume caffeine sporadically. However, the degree of tolerance can vary widely, and some individuals may remain more sensitive to caffeine's effects despite regular consumption. Moreover, individual health conditions can also influence how caffeine impacts blood pressure. It is crucial to consider these individual factors and consult with healthcare professionals to determine the appropriate level of caffeine consumption for optimal health. The question that often arises amidst the steam of a freshly brewed cup is, does that morning coffee trigger an immediate spike in blood pressure? Scientific studies offer a mixed bag of answers, painting a complex picture of caffeine's short-term effects. Some studies suggest that caffeine consumption can indeed lead to a transient increase in blood pressure, particularly in individuals who are not accustomed to caffeine's effects. This increase, often observed within the first hour after consumption, is attributed to the surge of adrenaline and the temporary constriction of blood vessels discussed earlier. This effect, however, is often mild and short-lived, typically returning to baseline levels within a few hours. However, other studies suggest that the blood pressure response to coffee consumption can vary significantly depending on individual factors and consumption habits. This adaptation highlights the dynamic nature of our physiological responses and the importance of considering individual context. The short-term impact of coffee on blood pressure isn't solely determined by caffeine content. Several other factors come into play, adding layers of complexity to this intricate relationship. The amount of coffee consumed, the brewing method, and even the presence of other substances in your cup can influence the physiological response. For instance, consuming larger quantities of coffee, particularly in a short period, can lead to a more pronounced increase in blood pressure compared to moderate intake. Similarly, brewing methods that yield higher caffeine concentrations, such as espresso, may elicit a stronger response compared to methods like drip coffee. Furthermore, the presence of other compounds in coffee, such as antioxidants, can also modulate its effects on blood pressure. Some studies suggest that these compounds may have beneficial effects on blood vessel function, potentially counteracting the constricting effects of caffeine. This interplay of various components within coffee highlights the need for a holistic understanding of its impact on our bodies. For those who partake in the daily ritual of coffee consumption, the body often develops a remarkable ability to adapt and maintain equilibrium. This adaptation, often referred to as tolerance, involves a complex interplay of physiological mechanisms that help regulate blood pressure in the face of regular caffeine intake. One such mechanism involves the downregulation of adenosine receptors in the brain. With chronic exposure, the body may reduce the number of these receptors, making it less sensitive to caffeine's effects, including its impact on blood pressure. Additionally, the body may enhance its production of nitric oxide, a potent vasodilator, in response to regular caffeine consumption. This increase in nitric oxide can help counteract the constricting effects of caffeine on blood vessels, promoting a more balanced blood pressure response. This intricate balancing act highlights the body's remarkable ability to adapt to external stimuli and maintain homeostasis. While the short-term effects of coffee on blood pressure have been the subject of much scrutiny, the long-term implications are of greater interest when considering overall cardiovascular health. Here, the picture becomes a bit clearer, with research suggesting that moderate long-term coffee consumption is unlikely to significantly impact blood pressure negatively. In fact, some studies even hint at a potential protective effect. Observational studies, tracking large populations over extended periods, have found that regular coffee drinkers may have a slightly lower risk of developing hypertension compared to non-drinkers. This potential benefit is attributed to coffee's rich antioxidant profile, particularly polyphenols, which are believed to improve blood vessel function and reduce inflammation, both crucial factors in maintaining healthy blood pressure. While moderate coffee consumption is generally considered safe and potentially beneficial for most adults, excessive intake can be detrimental. High doses of caffeine, exceeding 400 milligrams per day for most adults, can lead to anxiety, insomnia, and potentially exacerbate underlying health conditions, including those related to blood pressure. When evaluating coffee's impact on our health, it's crucial to look beyond its effects on blood pressure alone. Coffee, a complex beverage with a rich tapestry of bioactive compounds, has been linked to a range of both positive and negative health outcomes. On the positive side, coffee consumption has been associated with a reduced risk of developing type 2 diabetes, Parkinson's disease, and certain types of cancer. These protective effects are attributed to coffee's potent antioxidant properties and its ability to modulate various metabolic pathways involved in these diseases. However, it's important to acknowledge that coffee consumption can also have downsides. Excessive intake can disrupt sleep patterns, lead to dependence, and exacerbate symptoms of anxiety and gastrointestinal disorders. Moreover, certain individuals may be more susceptible to coffee's negative effects, including pregnant women, those with heart conditions, and individuals sensitive to caffeine. Navigating the world of coffee research can feel like traversing a labyrinth of conflicting findings and contrasting opinions. One study suggests a positive effect, while another hints at potential harm. This disparity often stems from differences in study designs, populations studied, and the inherent limitations of scientific research. For instance, many studies investigating coffee's health effects are observational, meaning they observe patterns in large groups of people over time but cannot establish cause and effect. These studies are valuable for identifying potential associations, but cannot definitively prove that coffee is directly responsible for the observed health outcomes. Furthermore, individual responses to coffee can vary widely based on factors like genetics, metabolism, and lifestyle choices. This individuality underscores the importance of listening to your body, paying attention to how coffee affects you personally, and making informed decisions about your consumption habits. Coffee often finds itself entangled in myths, particularly regarding its impact on health. One myth is that coffee contributes to high blood pressure. Studies show moderate coffee consumption doesn't lead to chronic hypertension. Coffee's antioxidants can improve blood vessel function. Another misconception is that coffee is dehydrating. Moderate coffee consumption is unlikely to cause dehydration. For those seeking to minimize caffeine's effects on blood pressure, decaffeinated coffee might seem like the obvious solution. However, the relationship between decaf coffee and blood pressure is surprisingly complex and not fully understood. Some studies have observed a paradoxical effect, finding that decaf coffee consumption may be associated with a slight increase in blood pressure, while regular coffee consumption is not. The reasons behind this paradoxical effect remain unclear, but several theories have been proposed. One possibility is that the process of removing caffeine from coffee beans alters other compounds in the beverage, some of which might have blood pressure-raising effects. It's important to note that the observed effects of decaf coffee on blood pressure are generally modest and not considered a major health concern for most individuals. For individuals with pre-existing hypertension, the question of whether or not to indulge in a cup of coffee often sparks concern. While moderate coffee consumption is generally considered safe for most adults, those with hypertension need to approach caffeine with a bit more caution. Caffeine's ability to cause a temporary spike in blood pressure can be a concern for those already managing this condition. However, the magnitude of this spike is often mild and short-lived, particularly in habitual coffee drinkers who have developed a tolerance to caffeine's effects. The key, as with many aspects of managing hypertension, lies in moderation and individualized guidance. It's essential to work closely with a healthcare professional to determine the appropriate level of coffee consumption based on individual health status, medications, and blood pressure control. The coffee verdict: balancing pleasure and prudence. Coffee and blood pressure, a nuanced relationship. Caffeine can cause a temporary spike, but long-term effects are minimal with moderate consumption. Our bodies adapt, balancing caffeine's effects through mechanisms like nitric oxide production. Moderate coffee consumption may offer protective benefits against chronic diseases. Antioxidants in coffee guard against cellular damage and inflammation. Savoring the brew: practical tips for coffee lovers. Enjoy your favorite brew while maintaining healthy blood pressure with these tips. Embrace moderation. Most healthy adults can safely consume up to 400 milligrams of caffeine per day. Listen to your body's cues and adjust your intake accordingly. If sensitive to caffeine, consider adjusting your consumption timing. Spacing out your coffee intake can help mitigate blood pressure fluctuations. Pay attention to how coffee makes you feel. If you experience anxiety or insomnia, reduce your intake or opt for decaf. Consult your healthcare provider for personalized guidance. Enjoy coffee mindfully, savoring its rich flavors while prioritizing your health. Brew yourself a cup and enjoy the moment. A mindful approach to coffee can be both pleasurable and prudent. Don't forget to like and share to this video and subscribe to my channel.